Hi everybody, I'm here. Okay, as we get ready to start learning about science in a lab, we need to know the words and the names of all the stuff and equipment that we're going to need in order to be able to do the science. And so that's what this video lesson is about. What is everything called? So, from the beginning, we're going to be looking at a whole bunch of lab equipment, and I'm going to teach you the names of the lab equipment. I might tell you a little bit about how to use it, and throughout the coming weeks, we're probably going to pretty much use everything on this table. So we're just going to get started. By the way, there will be a quiz next week. Okay, so let's get started. This is probably one of the biggest pieces of equipment that's on my table. And some of you may know how to use this, but most of you probably do not. And the name of this piece of equipment is a triple beam balance. Now, some of you may be taking notes in your notebook. That's a really good idea. But we will have the cards and the equipment available here in the lab for you to see again, or in between classes, you may take a picture of the equipment table. By the way, that's probably a really good idea. So, this is a triple beam balance. You're going to be learning how to use one of these this week. But very quickly, the reason it's called a triple beam is because each of these bars that you see right here is called a beam. And each one has its own mass that slides across that beam. And this will help you to determine the mass. By the way, mass, M-A-S-S, not weight, because they are not the same. And we'll talk more about that when I get back. Triple beam balance. So let's put this big piece of equipment over here out of the way. All right, next big piece of equipment. I wonder what this is. Actually, this is two separate parts, but I want you to understand that these two things work together in the laboratory to give us something that helps us to stand things up. So the name of this piece of equipment right here is a ring stand. Wonder why it's called a ring stand? Because in chemistry, we use this type of stand to put glassware on a ring so that we can put heat or a burner underneath it. So this is a ring stand. And this thing that goes on the ring stand, and I've got to find my card, is actually called the ring clamp. Why is that? Because this screw here actually allows you, as you adjust where you want that, you screw it in tight, you clamp it to the stand, and voila, there it is. We'll actually use these a lot to hang things from and put things on throughout the semester. Ring stand and the ring clamp. So let's go to some glassware, is what we call these things. And we have three main pieces of glassware, but these are some of the most important pieces of laboratory equipment that we'll use in this semester. First of all is this sort of square looking one. Looks kind of like a drinking glass. By the way, never drink out of laboratory glassware. That's a safety violation. But these are called beakers. B-E-A-K-E-R-S, and I don't think I made a card for the beakers. So I'll try to make one if I have an extra card right here, which I do not see. Oh, there they are. Let me grab one. Beakers. They come in lots of different sizes. They also can be made out of plastic or made out of glass. They can be large. This one holds 1 liter of liquid. This one holds 250 milliliters of liquid. By the way, beakers measure liquids. So we'll make a card for that. Beak just like a bird. Beakers. Different sizes, different materials, and they measure liquids. So, putting our beakers aside, let's go on to this sort of interesting piece of laboratory glassware. We won't use these very much, but we will have them out in the lab. And if you notice, there's almost a triangular shape to this type of glassware as opposed to sort of a square shape. Anybody have any idea what this is actually called? Think about it. All right, I'll give you the answer and maybe you got it right. This is a flask. Okay, so it has a triangular shape, and flasks are used usually to heat materials. You can swirl them and mix things, and they have a small top. A lot of times you put a stopper on them, and you can run tubes out of them, and you do all sorts of neat things with flasks. Beakers, you don't really ever seal those up when you're trying to use them in a lab. They're more for measuring. But flasks usually have reactions going on inside of them. And so we have rubber stoppers that go in there, and I'll grab one of those out in the lab one day, but I don't have to have one out right now. So, flask. Next piece of glassware I have is really, really important. We're going to see these quite a bit. We're going to use them quite a bit, and probably tomorrow we're going to actually let you begin to learn how to use them and read them for measurement. By the way, I wonder if this piece of glassware is used to measure gases, liquids, or solids. Think about that. Answer is liquids. So, this is a pretty cool thing. It is called a graduated cylinder. They also come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. I brought 3 different size cylinders that you will use this semester out on my table today. This one only measures a total of 10 milliliters. This one can measure 500 milliliters. And this one, which is a very common size that you'll be using, measures 100 milliliters. Some are made of plastic, some are made of glass. And in one of our next videos, I'll be trying to show you how to actually use and read graduated cylinders. But in the meantime, why is it called a graduated cylinder? Why that big, long, complicated name? Why not just call it a cylinder? So this is the part that's kind of interesting. If you can see it on the video, you'll notice that there are all of these little numbers written on the cylinder, sort of a lot like you might see on a thermometer, for example. Well, it just so happens that each of the little lines that goes up here, in this particular case, each one is, I think it's worth 10 milliliters. Each of these is called, guess what? A graduation. That's a graduation, that's a graduation. So what do we call this? It certainly didn't go to high school and get a diploma, but we call it a graduated cylinder because it has different graduations on the side that are calibrated to the type of measurement that this cylinder will accomplish for you. So, remember those. We'll put those aside until the next lesson. All right, here's some other cool things. I have a number of hand tools here. I call them hand tools because they're small. And very important that we know the name of them because you'll be using all of these things quite frequently. First of all, this silvery looking thing, which we use to dig things up. We use it to get things out of beakers that might be solids, or we want to get some stuff and put it on a triple beam balance. This is what we use. It is called a lab spoon or a lab scoop. Doesn't exactly look like something that you'd eat macaroni and cheese with, but it works really good when you need to get some salt or baking soda out of a box. So that is a lab spoon or a lab scoop. Next, we have, let me get this other one right here. Oh, this little thing. You might not be able to see it too well in the video. I'll hold it in front of a white card. This is called a probe. And we use probes to probe things. Something we want to maybe look at, but we don't necessarily want to touch it with our fingers. And we need something very small and pointy that we can push in there and maybe pull things apart or put it on something and say, hey, what is this right here? And so it is called a probe. Now, just in terms of safety, somebody could look at this little probe and say, hey, that looks like a miniature spear. Man, I could sure like poke my partner and see if they jump. I would recommend that you not do that because that would be a serious safety violation. Only use the probe in the things that you've been told that you can probe. Thank you. Another important piece of hand tools, and I didn't even write the name down for this, but I think I did. These are, of course, tweezers. And we have all different kinds of tweezers in the lab. Oh, I forgot a very important set of tweezers that we will use. My giant tweezers. I bet these are the biggest tweezers that you've ever seen. I wouldn't exactly try to pull a splinter out with these. So tweezers also come in all shapes and sizes. And these are going to be a valuable tool when we're trying to pull some things apart or pick up some things, you never know what, in my lab. So remember, tweezers. Next piece of equipment, very important things that we will use quite a bit. Sort of these plastic squishy things. I wonder how they work. Well, had a little bit of water, I spilled it, so I'll get a little bit more. And these are plastic droppers. We use these a lot to transfer small amounts of water. And so you just squish on the top and you suck it up. It's kind of like a straw, but it has a top on it that causes you to be able to draw the water up. Many of them actually have graduations or the ability to tell you how much you have. For example, this plastic dropper measures 3 milliliters of water. And so you can use it like a small measuring device when you get ready to put it in something. And I can know that I put 2 milliliters of water inside that beaker. By the way, it's not good to use plastic droppers to, hit the person in your group. That's never a good idea. By the way, trying to hit the people in your group with a plastic water dropper would definitely qualify as a serious safety violation. And Mr. Hales would probably want to talk to you about it. All right, going to the next hand tool. After that, we have, the washing bottle. We'll use these quite frequently. This is what they look like, so you don't try to take them apart. But it's kind of like a little straw. They sort of look like a football bottle. If you ever drank a bottle at a soccer game or something, and there's a squeezy bottle where you can get water in your mouth without having to drink out of the top of a container, they're kind of like that. But washing bottles, as they are called, we use them quite frequently in the lab for all kinds of things. For example, if we want to wet something down, we can just have the water at our table and we can squeeze it and we can wet down a paper towel or wet down something and not make some big huge mess. We also can use the washing bottles to do exactly what it is they're called for. That maybe when we're using laboratory equipment in the cleanup area, you will see the washing bottles. And we use them to wash the glassware. They're kind of like little squirty bottles. So we use these in all different ways in my laboratory. The name? Washing bottles. Okay? Not playing bottles. Oh, didn't have any water in that one. Oh, that will squirt somebody else. Once again, what would that be if you decided to use your washing bottle against someone else in your group like that? That would be a serious safety violation, and Mr. Hales will be more than happy to talk with you about it. All right, moving on. Some really important things. These, and there's different sizes, different shapes, but pretty much they're all made of glass in my laboratories. They're very, very touchy to breakage. These are called, that's right, test tubes. And test tubes are something that we will use in different ways this semester. Some of the very important things about test tubes is it's never a really good idea to just ever set them down on your lab table, because guess what test tubes can do? Test tubes will roll right off your table onto the floor, like that, and everybody will stop everything they're doing to look for the breakage in the floor. So never lay your test tube down on your table. So guess what you have to put your test tubes in? You have a test tube holder. And I have a few different types of test tube holders, but mostly in 6th grade we'll use these blue plastic ones. They do a really good job for what we need. They keep our test tubes in the holder so they don't roll off the table and break. It's a really good idea. Now, just so that you know, we won't be doing this in 6th grade, but it's just nice to know some stuff. If you ever have to pick up a test tube that has gotten hot, we have these really cool little things called test tube holders. It's kind of funny. They look like little crabby claws, but they're not. So you squeeze in the test tube holder, you let off of the test tube holder, and then it will very nicely pick that test tube up for you, and you don't have to touch the wet test tube if it's wet, or maybe it has something chemical in it, or maybe it's hot, and you do not have to actually touch it with your hands. And sometimes that's very, very convenient, and it's a really good idea. By the way, if you're ever using test tubes, like, you never tilt one towards your face, especially if it's hot, because fumes or liquids could come out of there and get on your skin. So be careful how you work with test tubes in a lab. So we have test tube holders, we have test tubes, and we have test tube grabbers. All right? So you got to remember those. So let me put those to the side. We're sort of getting down to the bottom of our list. I have just a couple more pieces of equipment that I want to show you. One of these we'll be using in just a week or so. It's these cool little things. You may have seen these before. Sometimes they even have these out in medical labs. But these are really cool little things that are actually used by microbiologists to grow different types of bacteria and things in. They are called Petri dishes. Petri dishes. And we will be using these. They come in two parts. The top is a little smaller, but it's bigger, and it goes over the bottom like that. And we'll use these in a lot of interesting ways. Petri dishes. Last piece of equipment that I have to show you is, of course, this right here. Most of you probably know the name for this, and it is not a hat, but it's like the Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz, and it is, of course, called a, think about it, see if you're right, the name is a funnel. So, need to know what funnels are? We have little ones, we have big ones, and of course, they come in handy when we're trying to pour things from one container into another. All right, gang, we've sort of gotten to the bottom of my list of lab equipment that you need to know about in order to be able to work in my lab. So you have quite a few pieces to learn about. And I thank you for listening. And yeah, I guess we're done for today. And I'll be checking in with you again soon. Bye.